This chart tracks global conflicts since the Cold War. Traditional state-on-state wars are in steady decline, but civil conflicts involving foreign intervention have violently spiked upward. Right here at the divergence point, the global order fractured. We moved from a unipolar world into a decentralized polyarchic system. Traditional sovereign states no longer hold a monopoly on the use of violence. Regional powers and heavily armed non-state actors now actively contest that control. The baseline rules of modern international relations, governed by the UN Charter, strictly prohibit the direct use of force and mandate non-interference in another nation's internal affairs. To achieve their strategic goals without violating these explicit prohibitions, powerful states are forced to find a workaround. There is a strict distinction between simply donating military assistance and engaging in proxy warfare. Donating resources effectively cedes control to the recipient. A true proxy war requires directing the local actor's use of force to actively manipulate the political affairs of the target state. Because of this legal architecture, proxy warfare is now the primary instrument of modern statecraft. It is a mathematical optimization. It allows a state to project geopolitical power across the globe while shielding itself from both domestic blowback and international sanctions. To understand how modern wars are actually fought, we have to abandon the expectation of direct flag-on-flag confrontation. We must analyze the calculated, indirect relationships negotiated between unseen benefactors and the local forces doing the bleeding. Political scientists model this dynamic as a hierarchical dyad. The relationship relies on two specific roles: the principal, which is the external sponsoring state, and the agent, the local surrogate fighting on the ground. The principal externalizes the conflict for highly pragmatic reasons. By outsourcing the violence, policymakers avoid domestic public scrutiny, bypass the need for conscription, and drastically lower economic costs. But the agents are not mindless puppets. They are independent political actors with their own agendas. They accept the principal's money, weapons, and intelligence strictly to secure their own political survival and advance local self-interests. This dyad creates constant friction, a trade-off between plausible deniability and operational control. When threatened, anxiety forces the slider toward operational control, dictating exact targets. However, this instantly degrades deniability, exposing the state to direct international backlash and mission creep. Because the principal and the agent operate on overlapping but separate motivations, the model is inherently unstable. The ultimate strategic risk to the sponsor is blowback. Proxy wars do not end when the local fighters exhaust themselves. They burn indefinitely until the host nation is entirely consumed. As we move further into a polyarchic order, the reliance on surrogates will only accelerate. Driven by domestic war weariness, great powers have calculated that offshore balancing through proxy partners is the only viable strategy to maintain their influence. The immediate trajectory of this trend points towards the integration of artificial intelligence and autonomous robotics into proxy units. This technology will drastically lower the financial costs for benefactors, while data indicates it will severely increase the lethality and collateral damage inflicted on civilians. This guarantees an inescapable diffusion problem. The advanced weapons and billions in military assistance poured into these localized zones will inevitably bleed out, fueling global arms trafficking networks and terror financing for decades to come. To constrain this architecture, the international community must reform the legal threshold of effective control to properly attribute state responsibility and restructure the UN Security Council to eliminate the paralyzing conflicts of interest held by major powers. Unless the framework of international law evolves to match the grim reality of the principal-agent dyad, surrogate warfare will continue to fracture the foundational norms of global civilization, leaving behind a permanent wake of paradoxically frozen conflicts.